The Lyric Theater stood against the backdrop of a moonlit night, its once grand facade now a shadow of its former glory. The marquee, with letters long faded, hinted at a past filled with performances and applause. But tonight, it was silent, the only sounds those of the wind whispering through broken windows, and the distant echoes of a time long gone. I stepped inside, my footsteps echoing through the deserted lobby. Dust motes danced in the dim light of my flashlight, and the air was thick with the scent of decay and old velvet. I had come to investigate the spectral performances and ghostly echoes that had been reported. Around my neck hung a silver pendant, a family heirloom crafted in the shape of an intricate Celtic knot, said to protect against malevolent spirits. The theater's interior was a labyrinth of dark corridors and forgotten rooms. As I moved deeper into its heart, the temperature dropped, and a sense of unease settled over me. I unpacked my gear, EMF meters, cameras, and protective charms, ready for whatever awaited me. The stories spoke of a cursed relic that bound the ghost of a former manager, a man named James Lyric, to this place. It was said that he manipulated the shadows, controlling the phantoms that replayed their tragic stories on the decrepit stage. Determined to uncover the truth, I made my way to the main auditorium. The seats were covered in a thick layer of dust, and the stage loomed ahead, a dark void. As I approached, a flickering light caught my eye. A ghostly figure appeared, translucent and sorrowful, dressed in the attire of an old-fashioned theater manager. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my insides. "I am James Lyric," the figure replied, his voice an echo of a bygone era. "Bound here by a curse and a relic of my own making. What do you want?" I inquired, gripping my pendant tightly. "To be free," he said, his form flickering. "But the curse is strong. The relic must be destroyed." He pointed to a small box on a table at the edge of the stage. As I approached, shadows began to move, coalescing into figures from tragic plays long forgotten. They replayed their stories, their anguish palpable, their eyes hollow with despair. With a deep breath, I opened the box. Inside was an ornate pendant, similar to mine but darker, its intricate design twisted and malevolent. As I reached for it, the air grew colder, and the shadows closed in. "You cannot take it," a voice hissed from the darkness. The ghostly figures turned towards me, their expressions turning to malice. The theater shook, and the shadows surged forward, enveloping me in a suffocating embrace. I struggled against the darkness, my protective charm glowing faintly. James Lyric's ghost watched helplessly, his form growing fainter. "Destroy it," he urged, his voice barely audible. With the last of my strength, I smashed the cursed pendant against the floor. A blinding light erupted, and the shadows shrieked in agony. The ghostly figures dissolved, their tragic stories finally ending. As the light faded, I collapsed, exhausted. James Lyric's ghost stood before me, his expression one of profound relief. "Thank you," he whispered, his form becoming more translucent. "We can rest now." I watched as he faded away, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The theater, once a place of sorrow and despair, now felt lighter. As I left the Lyric Theater, the first light of dawn began to break, casting a gentle glow over the dilapidated building. The rotunda at the University of Virginia stood, as a monument to education and enlightenment, its classical architecture bathed in the pale glow of the moon. But tonight, it was more than just a symbol of knowledge. It was a beacon for the supernatural. I approached with caution, the weight of history pressing down on me as I prepared to investigate the spectral phenomena reported here. Inside, the grand halls were silent, the air thick with the scent of old books and polished wood. My footsteps echoed off the marble floors, a stark reminder of the solitude within these storied walls. I carried my usual gear, EMF detectors, cameras, and protective charms. Around my neck, A silver pendant in the shape of an intricate Celtic knot glimmered faintly, its protective magic a comforting presence. The report spoke of the ghost of the university's founder, clad in spectral robes, roaming the halls and conjuring visions of past events. Determined to uncover the truth, I made my way to the central dome, where the presence was said to be strongest. As I entered the rotunda's main chamber, the temperature dropped abruptly. My breath formed misty clouds in the cold air. The EMF meter in my hand spiked wildly, indicating a powerful presence nearby. I scanned the room, my flashlight casting long, eerie shadows across the walls. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw him, a figure in flowing robes, his form faintly glowing in the dim light. The ghost of Thomas Jefferson, founder of the university, stood before me, his expression both wise and sorrowful. "Who dares disturb the peace of these hallowed halls?" he asked, his voice an echo of a bygone era. "I seek to understand the disturbances here," I replied, my voice steady. "Why do you remain?" Jefferson's ghost sighed deeply, a sound filled with centuries of regret. "I am bound by the sorrows of those who came before and after me, scholars whose dreams were unfulfilled, whose lives were cut short." As he spoke, the air around us shimmered, and visions of past events began to unfold. I saw students from different eras, their faces etched with despair, their dreams left in tatters. The ghostly founder gestured towards a group of spectral scholars gathered in the shadows, their eyes hollow with sorrow. "These souls cannot rest," Jefferson explained. "Their stories are forgotten, their contributions unrecognized." I knew what had to be done. To release these spirits, I needed to acknowledge their contributions and give voice to their forgotten stories. I set up my camera, capturing the visions as they played out. The EMF meter buzzed incessantly, the energy in the room almost palpable. "Tell me your stories," I urged the spectral scholars. "Let your voices be heard." One by one, the spirits stepped forward, sharing their tales of ambition, innovation, and heartbreak. As I listened, I felt a deep connection to each of them, their passions and sorrows intertwining with my own. But as the last scholar spoke, a dark shadow loomed over us. A malevolent presence had been awakened by the disturbance. The air grew colder, and the shadows deepened. The ghost of Jefferson looked at me with urgency. "Beware," he warned. "Not all spirits here are benevolent." Suddenly, a spectral figure, twisted and malevolent, emerged from the darkness. It was a remnant of a soul consumed by jealousy and anger, its eyes burning with hatred. It lunged at me, its cold touch sending a shock of fear through my body. I held up my pendant, its light flaring brightly. The dark spirit recoiled, shrieking in fury. "You cannot banish me," it hissed, its voice dripping with malice. Drawing on all my strength, I began to recite an incantation, focusing on the pendant's protective magic. The light grew stronger, enveloping the room in a radiant glow. The malevolent spirit screamed in agony, its form disintegrating into wisps of smoke. As the darkness faded, Jefferson's ghost appeared beside me, his expression one of profound relief. "Thank you," he whispered, his form becoming more translucent. "You have done a great service." The spectral scholars around us began to fade, their faces now peaceful. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a sense of calm and closure. The rotunda, once heavy with sorrow, now felt lighter. As I walked back through the grand halls, the first light of dawn began to break, casting a gentle glow over the university. The spirits had found peace, their stories a reminder of the sacrifices made, and the enduring quest for knowledge. Exiting the rotunda, I glanced back one last time. The ghost of Thomas Jefferson stood at the entrance, a faint smile on his lips, before fading into the morning light. The moon cast a pale, eerie glow over the battlefield, illuminating the site of an ancient and bloody conflict. I stood on the outskirts of Chesapeake, where the land was forever haunted by the souls of fallen warriors. The legend spoke of spectral soldiers, locked in an eternal reenactment of their final moments, their anguished cries echoing through the trees. This was the battlefield of the damned. I stepped onto the grassy field, the weight of history pressing down on me. Instead of the usual ghost hunting gear, I carried a small lantern filled with enchanted oil, a rune-inscribed dagger, and a satchel of protective herbs. Around my neck hung a simple wooden talisman, carved with symbols of protection and imbued with ancient magic. The battlefield stretched out before me, dotted with crumbling memorials and weathered markers. The silence was heavy, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. I lit the lantern, its soft glow casting long, dancing shadows across the ground, and sprinkled the protective herbs in a circle around me. A sudden chill ran down my spine, and the faint sound of drums filled the air. The shadows began to shift, forming the ghostly shapes of soldiers locked in an eternal battle. Their spectral forms shimmered in the moonlight, their faces twisted with a mix of determination and despair. The clash of spectral weapons and the cries of pain echoed through the night. Taking a deep breath, I moved towards the heart of the spectral conflict. The air grew colder with each step, and the sounds of war grew louder. The wooden talisman around my neck warmed slightly, a sign that its magic was shielding me from the worst of the supernatural energy. In the midst of the ghostly chaos, I spotted a figure standing apart from the rest. Unlike the other spectral soldiers, this warrior seemed aware of his surroundings, his eyes filled with sorrow rather than fury. I approached him cautiously, feeling the weight of countless souls pressing down on me. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the din of the spectral battle. "I am Captain Elias Thorne," he replied, his voice a ghostly whisper. "I led these men into battle, and now we are cursed to relive our final moments for all eternity. Why are you still here?" I inquired, my breath forming misty clouds in the cold air. "We were betrayed," he said, his spectral form flickering. "Our defeat was not by the enemy's hand alone. There was treachery among us, and until it is exposed, we cannot find peace." Determined to help, I asked, "How can I uncover the truth?" "Find the traitor's relic," Captain Thorne replied. "It is buried here, somewhere on this cursed field. Only by revealing the traitor and destroying the relic can we be free." With a nod, I began my search, using the lantern's enchanted light to guide me. The ghostly battle raged around me, but the protective circle of herbs kept the spirits at bay. I moved carefully, feeling the weight of the task at hand. Hours passed, and the night deepened. Just as I was about to lose hope, the lantern's light flickered and illuminated a small, partially buried chest. I dug it up and pried it open, revealing a tarnished medallion, marked with the insignia of betrayal. As I held the medallion, the spectral forms turned towards me, their eyes filled with a mix of hope and fear. Captain Thorne stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the medallion. "You have found it," he said, his voice trembling. "Destroy it, and free us from this curse." I raised the rune-inscribed dagger and brought it down on the medallion. A burst of light erupted from the relic, and the air filled with the agonized screams of the betrayed spirits. The battlefield trembled, and the spectral soldiers began to fade, their forms dissolving into the night. As the last of the spirits vanished, Captain Thorne looked at me with gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, his form becoming translucent. "We can finally rest." The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a sense of calm and closure. The battlefield, once a place of sorrow and despair, now felt lighter. As I walked back through the field, the first light of dawn began to break, casting a gentle glow over the land. The spirits had found peace, their stories a reminder of the sacrifices made, and the enduring quest for truth.